"Can I play with the little men and women, Mom?" begged Timothy Lanesworth. "The ones in the old spaghetti jar? You promised me that if I washed the dishes and dried them and put them away neatly, that you'd give me something special for it." "No, Timmy," his mother Bridget scolded him politely. "You know that you're not allowed to play with those people. You shouldn't even mention them out loud." "But Mom," whined Timmy, "you always get to take them out for a walk, but I never even get to see them. That's no fair." "You're only 8 years old, my sweetie," Timmy's mom replied. "I was only 7 when I ran across the Lauritarians. I found them hiding near a grove of trees on the beach when my mother and I went on vacation to Florida back in 1987. But why can't I ever goof around with them? I'll be nice to them, you watch." "Timmy," whispered his mother piercingly with a stern look on her thin but pretty face, "you know that the government wants to do bad things to the little men and women. That's why your father—" "I know, Mom. That's my dad went missing when I was only 3. "Then you know full well why I can't let you play with the Lauritarians. I can never let you or anyone else see them, and that's final." Just then, a dark green mid-sized car pulled up alongside the house. 2 men who were wearing tinted sunglasses got out of the car and started looking around as if they were trying to locate something important. One of them was wearing a brown and green sweater with huge diamond shapes on it. The other was dressed in a dark blue suit with a red tie over a white shirt. The 2 men approached the home at a deliberate pace. The larger one of the 2, the one in the sweater, knocked on the wooden door. "Timmy, go play in your room," said Bridget in a low voice. "I'll answer the door. You just stay out of sight." "I'm going to stay right here, Mother, and protect you," Timothy responded defiantly. Another knock was heard. "Okay, Timmy," his mother said. "I'll go let the strangers in." Striding toward the door purposefully, Bridget opened it a crack and said, "What can I do for you folks?" "Well, for starters, Bridget," answered the man in the green and brown sweater, "you can let us in." Neither Bridget nor Timmy let on that they knew anything about a race of tiny beings that had escaped from a U.S. government science lab over 2 decades earlier, despite all the sharp questions that the 2 dour-looking men kept asking them over and over again. "We'll be back," announced the man in the dark blue suit to a frightened though composed Mrs. Lanesworth as he and the other man arose to leave him and his mother in peace, at least for the time being. "We might return someday soon, Mrs. L. Your husband had something to do with the disappearance of those tiny people. We just want to see them brought back where they belong, that's all." Turning to her son and smiling disingenuously, he added, "You understand, Timmy, don't you?" Timothy lowered his head in disgust and made no reply to the creepy man. Later that day, long after the official U.S. government car had left the premises, Bridget took out the glass jar that contained the Lauritarians and gave them some fresh air out in the backyard. Since Timmy had gone over to play at Melissa Tooley's house, Mrs. L had been left alone to her thoughts and whims for the duration of the afternoon. "That's all that I'll remember of the story," said Manfred, a 79-year-old semi-invalid who spent most of his time in a wheelchair each day. He lived in the next town over from Bridget, though he had never met her in person. He had, however, been a laboratory associate of Bridget's husband, who was 20 years Bridget's elder, back in the day, as well as a personal friend of the man. Lemons, a considerably younger man whose interest in arcane matters, like the existence of a race of beings living inside an enclosed container, was insatiable, thanked the old coot for the pot of decaffeinated tea that each of them had shared and got up to leave. "Oh, while it's fresh in my mind," mumbled Manfred cordially before the young man had gone from his sight, "here's the address. I have it written on a piece of paper in my coat pocket, my good fellow," he said, thereupon handing the item to Mr. Lemons. Staring intently at the strip of paper in the palm of his left hand, Lemons read, "Mrs. Bridget Lanesworth, such and such street, in so-and-so town, etc., etc." Pausing briefly to look the note over one more time for good luck, the younger fellow smiled and said, "You've been a great help, Mr. Manfred. I can never thank you enough for your warmth and pleasantness." "I'm sure that you can see yourself to the door, Mr. Lemons," replied Manfred in closing. "She's a fine woman, you can bet, and she has a young son from what I hear."